Welcome back to the Seaboard Central, everyone, in part 10 in the Realistic Ops series. And since I'm uploading this video on March 31st, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a happy Easter. So in part 10, we're going to be talking about developing a routing plan for each one of my road switchers and my yard switchers that I have on the layout. And I'll show you some things that have to be taken into consideration when determining what customers to work or what the job actually does. So if this sounds interesting to you, keep watching. And if you enjoyed it, I appreciate a thumbs up. So without further ado, let's get started. So looking at the track plan again, one of the things that I originally had to decide is how many trains do I actually want to run on the layout. And I divided the trains up into three different types: road trains, road switchers, and yard switchers. When it comes to road trains, I will have trains originated from staging. And if you see here, I got the staging drawn up. It connects to here and it goes underneath this part of the layout and comes out on this side in Gadson Yard. So I have trains headed east and trains headed west in both directions. So that covers the road trains. And when it comes to road switchers, I'm going to have a pair of road switchers that are assigned to Carolton that's going to take care of this whole area here. And then I'm going to have more switchers, including 2 yard switchers and another road switcher located at Gadson here, that will take care of Gadson Yard and the industries around it, and one that'll go up all the way to Ragland to work this. So if you'll recall this from an earlier video when I was talking about developing the operating plan, I had divided it up, and this was the west end plan covering Gadson, the trains originating and terminating there, and also the yard jobs and the local that originates here at Gadson. So for the yard jobs, they begin with the letter Y. And so you have a Y81 that goes on duty at 6 a.m. as the first shift switcher, and a Y86 goes on duty at 4 p.m. as the second shift switcher. There's also one local, a road switcher, L83, which goes to Ragland, and that's the Ragland turn. For the Carolton operating plan, I have 2 road switchers, an L62 that goes on duty at 7 a.m. and an L68 that goes on duty at 5 p.m. I did have it originally at 6 p.m. I've changed it to 5 p.m. And then there's 2 road trains that stop and work at Carolton. So when it comes down to establishing a local's route, the first thing that has to be considered is time. By federal law, we cannot work more than 12 hours. So if a switcher goes on duty at 7 a.m., it cannot perform any work after 7 p.m. That's called going on the law. Another thing that has to be factored is distance, and also track speed. How fast can you cover that distance? So on a road switcher that originates, say, at Carolton, and you have industries that are all the way 44 miles away in Sonoya, you need to have enough time to make it from Carolton to Sonoya, work the industry, and then make it back within the 12 hours. The same situation where I have a local L83 originating around this area in Gadson and traveling to this area where Ragland is located, has to work ADM and National Cement and make it back within 12 hours. So what happens if they don't make it back? They go on the law. That means they need to be relieved by another job. And it could be either an extra that's called off the extra board, or say another job that goes on duty that afternoon or that morning that will pick up wherever the train is at. So in the event that a train reaches its hours of service, you may see a train actually tied down somewhere, waiting for another crew to show up and resume the trip back to the home terminal. And the last thing to consider is the workload. How much work is typically involved on a daily basis for a particular switcher? So you have time, distance, and work. All goes into consideration when developing an operating plan for a local switcher. So taking all of that into consideration, here's what I came up with when I developed the Seaboard Central Local and Yard Service Routing Guide. You'll see at the top I have my 2 yard jobs, train Y81 and Y86. With Y81 going on duty at 6 a.m. and its 12-hour limit is 6 p.m. and Y86 going on duty at 4 p.m. with its 12-hour limit at 4 a.m. So besides switching the yard, Y81 also works the shop area. So pardon the mess, this area is currently under construction, but let me show you what Y81 will take care of. This track in the very back here is SD's repair services, and that's where cars will be sent to be repaired, cleaned out, things of that nature. And then this track right here is what I call the sand track, where they'll actually unload sand hoppers. And also right here is where a biodiesel tank car can be spotted up. And then occasionally up front, there may be a gun spotted up for the track supervisor. So for the second shift yard job, besides switching the yard at Gadson, they're responsible for working the Goodyear tire plant. So you see I've got it divided up into Goodyear at A19 and Goodyear tire and rubber at A20 because they just get different car types. Here you see it's located at Gadson, Alabama, and this 332 spell is an abbreviation. It just goes on the paperwork that separates the two. That's how you'll be able to tell the difference. The car types they generally receive, you've got the carbon black covered hoppers, along with like plastic pellet covered hoppers and tank cars, and then this Goodyear tire and rubber receives box cars. So you might be thinking, where is the Goodyear tire plant? I didn't see it on the original track plan, and let me show you how I'm going to fit that in. So here's the Gadson yard area, and it comes out to a place called AC Junction. And here you'll have a track that switches off, and it actually goes underneath this section where SLM recycling is. And there's a track that goes underneath the section where Argos is. And it runs right along the edge here underneath this upper level. And so it gives me enough room to put one long lead and then a track to spot cars. So you'll have a yard job pull out, shove all the way around, and work Goodyear, and then go back to the yard. One other cool thing is that it allowed me to actually put the Norfolk Southern interchange on the inside of the helix. So you can see this track coming off right here that will go around on the inside. This is a 24-inch radius curve where I can spot an entire NS interchange train here that'll just stage there until it's ready to come out and bring cars to the yard. So next up, you'll see train L83, which shows up on most of my videos. And this is the Ragland switcher that originates in Gadson, works the ADM plant and the National Cement plant. So you'll see I have ADM divided up into R48 and R49 for ADM ethanol. And R48 gets the covered hoppers, R49 gets the tank cars. Then you have National Cement, which is R50, getting cement hoppers. So this L83 originates here in Gadson, goes up the helix and works the industries at Ragland. These are pretty large industries that would get a daily switch. So having only these two industries to work, plus the distance that the local would actually travel, makes complete sense because remember, that's where that workload factor came in. So you have time, distance, and workload actually making a huge difference in this particular job. So the last two locals are what we call road switchers, are the ones that work in Carolton. And you have a 7 a.m. job, L62, and it logs out at 7 p.m. And it's L68 that goes on duty at 5 p.m. and logs out at 5 a.m. So pretty much got these divided up. This was basically, this L62 is the Noonan turn, runs down to Noonan all the way to Sonoya and back. And it does have a couple of places that it works in Carolton. So you'll see this, all these industries: Noonan Transload, William Bonnell, Windpack Films, Southwire. This is the boxcar section of Southwire. Dixie Converting, they get boxcars in, and also the track supervisor there. Doesn't mean these industries get worked every day. So on a typical work order, you may see only 3 or 4 show up on the work order. So looking at the track plan, L62 would take care of Dixie Converting here. They get the boxcars in. And also, here's the track supervisor's track here. They're responsible for that. And then this right here is where boxcars are spotted for south wire. They work that. Those are what they have to take care of in Carolton. Then you have Noonan Transload here, get center beam lumber flats and occasional boxcars. And then you have William Bonnell. We're going to use covered coil cars to go here, steel coil cars. And then Winpack Film is going to be represented by a team track here. I didn't go all the way to Sonoya. I did model the town of Noonan, and here I'm just going to have a team track where these plastic pellets are spotted. It's not something that gets switched every day, so it'll make it a little more interesting. Now, L68 is the afternoon switcher, and by going on duty at 5 p.m., they can use the same power that L62 has. That way, we can only assign 2 locomotives to Carolton. Makes more sense, right? And they go on the law at 5 a.m. So they really work only industries in Carolton. So you have the South Wire, Argos Concrete, SLM Recycling, and Southern States and Cargill Animal Nutrition is the same location, just separated. I'll show you how that's separated out. There's also a Dow Chemical lease track that they take care of, and Borealis Compounds. So let me show you that on the map. So on the map right here is the Dow Chemical lease track, where cars waiting to be spotted can be placed here. That gets them off of demurrage. And we talked about that in the earlier video. So Dow actually leases a track for extra cars that's headed either here to Southwire or possibly even over here to Winpack. In addition to that, L68 does take care of the plastic pellets at Southwire, and the tank cars that come here are spotted with the chemicals. All right, here's where Southern States is located and Cargill Animal Nutrition. So they get different products like corn, DDG, wheat mids, things of that nature, depending on what they do in the animal feed making process. I'll show you the new track arrangements for here. I had it labeled as US Gypsum, but it's actually going to be Borealis Compounds. Then here's Argos Concrete. So you have the cement on this track, the sand on this track, and then here's SLM Recycling that loads scrap metal. Here's a more zoomed up version. So you see the SLM Recycling here. You can put about 2 or 3 guns to load out scrap. Then here's Argos. This was from the old layout, the original layout. I was able to save this section. So you can spot up 4 cement hoppers here and 4 open top hoppers of sand and gravel on this track. And then this track right here, which is, I've got labeled as US Gypsum, but it's actually going to be Borealis Compounds. This is going to get like a gypsum type product. In real life, Borealis Compounds gets plastic pellets, but I'm going to say it's a gypsum type product. Makes more sense and it'll be more interesting. So took a modeler's license there. And then for Southern States, this track right here, so they get both corn and the DDG that will come out of ADM, some wheat mids, and some soybean meal. Well, I'll be spotted at this location. So developing a realistic operating plan for your local switchers that takes into consideration time, distance, and workload is a great way to make your layout more realistic. On the prototype, some days we have heavy days and some days we have light days. That might mean that we work all 12 or we get off early. Not every industry needs to be switched during every session. So on the prototype, we may only go to that industry 2 or 3 days a week. So that's a great way to make your layout more realistic. So I hope you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit more about how I plan to operate the Seaboard Central. And next week's video is going to be the monthly layout update, and it's going to be a big one, so be sure to tune in for that. And then we're going to pick up in April on developing the paperwork to make the realistic paperwork to run the railroad. So be sure to keep watching for that. So until next time, thanks for watching and happy model railroading, everyone.